Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new What If. What if Deku had a random quirk daily? Now, I'm pretty sure Zevada did this already. I honestly can't remember. It kind of just popped into my head one day. With that being said, if you like this, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see more, I will have a full playlist linked down below where you can see the whole series along with anything that's on my channel. Give it a cheeky look if you want. Anyway, let's get right into it. Dick was born in his regular family, in his regular home. He'd just be like any other kid, just living life, playing heroes, always addicted to people's quirks. Even from a young age, Deku seemed to be entranced by quirks. Every type of quirk too, not just the flashy ones. He'd be in love with every quirk. In his eyes, any quirk could be good. You just had to use it right. Deku would be playing with Bakugo one day as after his quirk would have awakened. Deku was usually oh, Duke Deku was as usual looking over Bakugo's quirk, figuring out how it works, why it works, and its strengths. He would be writing this down in a little notebook he kept. Bakugo weirded out by him, but kind of liking the attention. This continued for some weeks, until everyone around him unlocking their quirks except for Deku. The quirk fanboy of all people seemed not to have one. How ironic. Bakugo teased him for this. Yeah, maybe if you study enough quirks, you can have one. Him and his goonies laugh. Deku stands up, clenching his fist. You just watch. When my quirk comes, I'm gonna be way stronger than you. Bakugo didn't like this. He starts walking towards Deku. Deku falling on his ass before scrambling back on his hands. He looks back. Bakugo about to throw a punch at him. He closes his eyes. In that moment, a huge bubble wraps around Bakugo. His goonies look on. What the? Bakugo sits there, trapped inside the bubble, banging on it, but with no use. Deku, let me out! Deku opens his eyes, seeing the bubble in front of him. I made this? Bakugo's goonies nod there. Whoa, cool! Deku looks at it, analyzing it later for his notebook. Bakugo screams once again. Deku shaking himself up and popping from Bakugo. What was that, Deku? Your stupid bubble quirk of Noah's is nothing compared to my explosions, just you watch. Him and his goonies walk away, as Deku looks at his hands. He did that? His quirk finally awakened. He'll get the teachers to call Inko, who rushes to Deku and rushes him straight to the quirk doctor. The doctor sits him down and explains his quirk. Well, it seems like your son here has a bubble quirk of sorts. He can make bubbles from himself that trap things and enemies out of it. It changes its strength based on the objects inside. Deku was wide-eyed by this. His quirk was so cool. He wrote this all down. The doctor noting that Deku would make a great hero. They walk out the quirk doctor, testing room, and would go home. Deku making bubbles in the car ride home, in his room at home, and showering that night before bed. He was in love with his quirk for some reason. It felt extra special. He went to bed super happy with his quirk finally awakened, getting the best night's sleep he'd ever gotten. Waking up the next day, the first thing he does is try to make a bubble. Not a single thing happens. He's confused, rushing out the living room where Inko sat. Mum, I can't activate my quirk. Do they just run off sometimes? Inko confused. No, sweetie. A quirk is a part of yourself. You don't just lose it after awakening one. Deku tries more and more as the day goes on, trying as he eats breakfast, gets ready for school, and goes to school. The class surround him. Deku, what's your quirk? Deku would explain it to them. They're all kind of impressed. It's weirdly a cool quirk. Everyone but Bakugo. Deku explains he can't activate it though, and that after last night it's been missing. No one believes him, thinking he faked his quirk awakening to stop getting bullied. Bakugo thinks this is strange, but goes along anyway, going back to teasing Deku once again. This continues for the next few days, from Tuesday to Thursday. Deku's still trying to activate his quirk, but with no use. He was confused. His quirk didn't get stolen or something, right? He went back to school on Friday, the class asking him if his quirk ran away this morning, before laughing. Deku clenches his fist once again, feeling an anger inside of him he hadn't felt ever. He let it loose. This time, a wave around him, a physical energy wave that radiated from him, and his anger being felt by the class all at once, like Conqueror's Haki. The room goes silent, the wind stops blowing, the trees stop moving, bugs stop bugging. The class looks on. What just happened? Isn't his quirk a bubble quirk? Bakugo's extra confused. He knows he had a quirk. What the hell? You have multiple quirks? What are you, a freak? Bakugo would say coldly to Deku. Deku looking at his hands, though he had a bubble quirk. He thought he had a bubble quirk. He's rushed back to the doctor once again, going to see a different one this time. He gets examined by someone with a quirk to see quirks. Well, kid, you're a real special case. I've never seen anyone with a quirk like you. Deku tilts his head. Your quirk is currently aura. It allows you to release an aura of your emotional state so others can feel it. Inko looks confused. Currently? The doctor looks at her. Yes, currently. Did you notice how his quirk changed from a bubble quirk to an aura quirk almost overnight? They both nod. Well, it's because young Deku here has a second part to his quirk. A quirk to randomize his quirk. They both look on in shock. Deku has multiple quirks? The doctor explains in detail. No. Deku will have one quirk each day, ranging from a god tier quirk to a bug level quirk. Deku here will have a random one each and every day. You could be one hell of anything if you really wanted to, kid. Deku looks at his hands. Every quirk? They're sent back home with a special referral by the doctor to explain his quirk to the school. Everyone's astounded. He becomes a celebrity overnight. Where he comes from, a kid with the quirk to have a quirk every day? Everyone is jealous of him, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Thankfully, his quirk as a side effect makes him analyze quirks off of nature. This allowed him to figure out how to activate quirks much easier, figuring the three types of quirks he can have, along with their strengths and weaknesses. He would need all the info he could get on quirks as much as he can. He couldn't depend on his quirk every day, so he had to make the most of what he had. He grows up every day as a new quirk. He would study it each and every day, using it as much as possible before it was discarded. Even the weaker ones, the power to pop an eye out of the head, the power to duplicate himself. Each and every power was documented and studied, and due to this, a certain school would take attention to him. Due to Deku's celebrity status across town, UA would send him a message at the age of 6. Figuring his quirk could be very, very powerful if it put him in the right hands and trained well. He's brought up into UA, being introduced to the teacher like Nezu and Aizawa predominantly, training with them and being taught the basics of quirk theory. Through this, Deku became an almost expert on quirks, being able to figure out the weaknesses and strengths of people's quirk just by looking at them most of the time. His experience over quirks was much different than anyone else's too. He also became a borderline expert on hand-to-hand combat by the time he was 14, being trained by close-range fighters like Aizawa in his scarf just in case his quirk wasn't up to par. He would continue to train like this, every quirk an opportunity to get stronger and get more experienced. He would find the teachers, a teleport to it. Sorry. He would fight the teachers. He would get a teleport quirk, he's blindfolded and told to fight the teachers off sound. Stuff like that. By the time he's 14, he's an absolute monster, about the size of Mirio currently. It's around time for the UA entrance exam. Deku was given a scholarship almost instantly, Nezu telling him to not be silly. They know his worth more than anyone. It's around this time that Deku is offered a little something from a certain pro hero on behalf of Nezu's good word. Yes, All Might offers one for all to Deku. Now, why is this? 1. Nezu was vouching for him. Someone with a legit intelligence quirk. Like, come on, that's nuts. And 2, he's been trained for good. He's been trained for good for ages now. There's no way he's evil. Sorry if this sounds kind of weird. Sorry, never mind. 3. His quirk works really well with one for all. Deku would accept. Now this is going to make Deku more than OP. Like, I don't really like riding OP Dekus, but there's legitimately no way around it on this one. Though I am going to do it a little bit different, which you will see later on. So from there on, Deku doesn't do the entrance exam, being put straight into Class 1A. As Aizawa is also useful for keeping Deku's quirks in check. Deku waits another 3 weeks, training and getting used to one for all, finding it's a strange power. In this time, he doesn't get full cowling going. He does get full cowling going. Due to his body being like Mirio level strength already though, it's a bit overkill, so I won't be giving him 100% off the bat. The weeks fly, and Deku walks into his class on the first day of school, being blessed with a truly OP ability to move his ears independently. A dud quirk. Dud quirks being quirks you can't think of uses for. There's just a limit to some quirks. Even with one for all, Deku sits in class, kind of playing around with his quirk. Although he didn't think it was useful, he kinda liked to play with it. It felt kinda funny. He sat in class with his head down, kinda tired from the training yesterday, flicking his ears right to left. He low-key drifts off after sitting there for too long, the rest of the class slowly piling in as he sleeps. No one really notices him. He didn't really stand out as much. He was just a kind of a buff kid with some weird pointy ears. Bakuro looked over at this, seeing the kid's hair and thinking it was someone else, but pushed that thought to the back of his head. Azao would then storm inside the class. Clearing his throat, he introduces himself and tells them about the upcoming quirk apprehension test. Deku sits up after hearing Azawa's voice, knowing he would get whooped if he didn't. Deku straight away walks up and guts it. Deku straight away standing up and walking out of the class, not paying any attention to anyone, nor talking to anyone, just getting up and leaving. Aizawa points at him and mimics for them to follow. They do so and get dressed before meeting outside. Deku gets thrown the ball, throwing it and getting the solid 1,000 meters like a cannon. This time, no bones breaking at all. A huge gust of wind blowing the class back. Everyone's shocked. This kid has so much power. He looks so boring. They never would have known. That's until Aizawa speaks his name. Good throw, Deku. Bit shorter than usual though. Deku? There's no way. He looks at his face again. Damn it, Deku. What the hell are you doing here? Where's that weak bubble quirk? Deku looks down at his arms, has his arms crossed, shaking his head. Oh, so primitive, Bakugo. Bakugo lunges at him. What did you call me? Deku weaves him and smacks him to the floor with one punch. Bakugo smacking him to the floor. Aizawa shrugging and explaining the rest of the test. The class completes them, and Deku gets an easy first place. Where am I up to? So, Bakugo doesn't even wake up in the time frame around the apprehension test, so he skips out on it, waking up in a sweat in the infirmary instead. He gets up panting. Damn it, that's not Deku. Who the hell is that?